The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream. Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
Hey. It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
I've never seen anything like this in my life. It is obviously corrupt. Obviously, laws were broken. Obviously, there are shenanigans here. I believe you and Senator Rubio are 100% correct. We will follow this every single second of every day now because the people of Florida deserve their just vote, which they got. And you won this race hands down.
Oh,
and
my God.
this is a disgrace that they get to do this election in, election out. Somebody needs to go to jail here. If this keeps happening, you keep violating the law, you don't respond, every other county responds, then you change your numbers again and again and again, something's not right.
You're not right. I swear conservatism is a mental disorder. It has to be. It has to be some sort of a thing that would make you drink that much Kool-Aid. It's he didn't even let Rick Scott speak, which, would be a good thing because Rick Scott is screaming fraud. So everybody, welcome to Florida. I told you. I'll say this much. If there's going to be a giant election problem, it's probably a lot more pleasant for, people to rush to the scene of the action when it's in Florida in November than Minnesota in November or North Dakota in November. Right. I mean, because it's cold, it's the wintry mix, it's gray, it's ugly, up there. In Florida, you can actually watch your own democracy fall apart while still wearing your Make America Great t-shirt. Isn't that nice? Florida is a giant sinkhole. Look at the shape of the state, everybody. Just have a gander there. Just look at the shape of the state. Do you see why? Okay, that's the explanation I have for what goes on here. It's politically putrid here. It's like 2000 all over again, except that with Trump as president, you got 2 or 3 other politically putrid things happening at the same time. So maybe he can't handle more than one thing at a time, but he can cause more than one thing at a time. He's very good at concurrent disasters is what he's doing here. So, listen, expect the mobs because, the Republicans, they've told us that we're the Democratic mob, we're the mobs. Did you see all those protests yesterday? Did you see how nice and peaceful they were? Did you see how national they were? Did you see how organized they were? Did you see how well behaved everybody was?
In New York City, it was thousands of people in Times Square. Ultimately, they marched as a group downtown toward Union Square. It's a distance of about 25, 30 city blocks. The marchers apparently stretched for about a dozen of those blocks as they marched downtown. In Virginia, State Route 7 in Virginia. Talk about contrast with Times Square. Look at this. Rural State Route 7 looked like this. The sign saying truth and protect Mueller. In Roanoke, Virginia, people marched with big banners that read, no one is above the law, protect the investigation. In Kansas City, Missouri, in what looks like, as this looks to me like the dreaded wintry mix, right? Snowy, slushy, icy rain.
That's why it's better here.
Hey, hey, ho, ho.
No.
Maybe it's ho, ho, hey, hey.
Yeah.
There we go. Mueller ain't going away. That rhymes better than hey, hey, ho, ho. People came out in Charleston, South Carolina tonight as well. People came out in downtown Cincinnati, Ohio.
All right.
In Red State, Alabama, in the beautiful city of Birmingham, Alabama, people came out tonight. In Philadelphia, people gathered at Thomas Paine Plaza in large numbers to demand that the president's hand-picked appointee must be recused from the Mueller investigation. He cannot be allowed to oversee it. Hundreds of people turned out tonight in Minneapolis, where it is heading down toward 19 degrees tonight. They decided to gather in front of the office of just unseated Republican Congressman Eric Paulson, asking him to protect Mueller. I think this is why people didn't mind the cold there tonight. No more Minnesota nice. Now I'm Minnesota mad.
Yay!
People were out in places like Buffalo, New York, and Austin, Texas, Madison, Wisconsin, and Omaha, Nebraska.
Fabulous.
The protests were bigger in some cities and smaller in others. Little Rock, Arkansas, Smyrna, Georgia, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, where it was snowing. Santa Fe, New Mexico. In Chicago, somebody held this vaguely threatening, but also very well done sign. Mueller is coming for you. In Pittsboro, North Carolina. Pittsboro. More than 100 people gathered in front of the courthouse. Pittsboro, North Carolina. And there's so many more cities where these things happen tonight on zero notice. Morristown, New Jersey, Kingston, New York, St. Louis, Missouri, Bar Harbor, Maine. I mean, people were out on the road in super snowy Bemidji, Minnesota tonight, and in warm and sunny St. Petersburg, Florida. All 50 states.
All 50 states. All 50 states. You see, we told you over there that if something happened that threatened Mueller, that the Democrats, all the different groups, the Indivisibles, the Move-Ons, the citizens, the public citizen groups, all of them, have, text messaging, and they would tell everybody where to go and what to do and when. And that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. And this is all because Donald Trump is lying when he says that he doesn't know that. Oh, I don't even know if you know. I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, I don't even know if you know this part. Let me deal with the election first, and then I'll show you what a freaking liar he is. Okay, because it's just so easy to do. But once again, our nation's lonely eyes turn to Florida. I agree it's going to be much tougher to blow your mind in the era of Trump, but don't ever count us out. We're Florida. We're Florida. We can blow your freaking minds. I'm sure we will not disappoint. All right, here's where we are. Republicans are here, and they're trying to stop a recount in Florida. Just so you know, in Arizona, the 4 different Republican groups have filed a lawsuit asking Arizona to stop counting the votes. This is what they do. They just, but here in Florida, here's the scary part. They control the vote in Florida, as you might know. Okay, they're complaining about this woman in Broward County, the election supervisor. I admit, this election supervisor, her name is Brenda Snipes. She's got to go. This girl, we never seem to pick the very best people to run our elections. We have lived through, I don't even want to, mention Teresa Lepore's name because, quite frankly, it conjures up the ghost of 2000. But what's so interesting about Broward County's election supervisor is that she was appointed by Jeb Bush. Hardly a partisan on my side. See what I mean? And we do have a Secretary of State who is just right up there with Catherine Harris, Cruella de Vil. Again, don't want to mention because it brings up the ghost of 2000. His name's Ken Densner. He's a Rick Scott appointee. So if they are complaining about the caliber of person or persons that are running the elections here in Florida, then it's a giant circle jerk, isn't it? Because these are the people they picked. And they don't like the fact that the people they picked to control the vote in Florida are still counting the damn votes. See, because democracy, the way that it works in Florida, and like I said, just check the shape of our state. It's very third world here, gotta say. First we vote, and then we decide who the winner is with mobs and lawyers. Guys in Brooks Brothers khakis, while America looks on completely dumbfounded. That's what happens here in Florida. They send in every nut job, every nutbag on the payroll, and they have those people shout down everybody else. So, just remember, they don't like mob rule, but they're very good at deploying mobs when they need them. They're very, very good. Rick Scott is yelling fraud. Marco Rubio is yelling fraud. Marco Rubio really needs to go back to law school, truly, because I happen to know Florida election law, okay? And he happens to know, he's just lying. He says that there's a big problem in Florida and that there's a 30-minute deadline where 30 minutes after the election is ended, 30 minutes after the polls close, the election supervisor in every county is supposed to report all the mail-in ballots. That would be impossible because the mail-in ballots, some of them arrive after Election Day. Idiot. No, what the law says is the tabulated mail-in ballots must be given 30 minutes after. After that, it's whenever they're done tabulating that they have to report we completed this batch, and now we're moving on to that batch. Now, they're all doing it. They're all on the TV, and they're all screaming fraud, including the president today, who was completely unhinged yet again. Just a sick display of complete chaos and mismanagement coming from this man. I just couldn't believe it. The president of the United States demanding that guys like Jim Acosta lose their job because he doesn't respect the office of the president. Wait, we'll get there too. This is very, very sick. And then shortly after he said that Jim Acosta needs to go because he doesn't respect and he also said April Ryan doesn't respect the office of the presidency. And April Ryan is nasty. She's a nasty woman. April Ryan is the most polite person who reports for urban radio networks. She is deferential. She is polite. She reserves a lot of the stuff that she would like to say and maintains her journalistic stature. I mean, to pick on April Ryan. And then as soon as he said that the office of the presidency must be respected, he called Abby Phillip from CNN stupid to her. I mean, this was just an amazing thing. But let's stick with the election first, okay? So many of them. He just couldn't shut up about it. I'll do 22 because that goes first.
But you notice the votes never go the other way? They hire lawyers, and the votes don't ever seem to go the Republican way. Although I hear, well, I don't know, you tell me, it's always the Democrats. It's always GPS fusion. It's always crooked stuff. Look at what happened. How many FBI are gone? How many Justice Department people are gone? That I found out. There's a lot of bad stuff going on in this country, and we're finding out, and I'm getting to the bottom of it. And I've done a hell of a job. How many people have been fired from the FBI? You got Comey, you got McCabe, you got Strzok, you have Lisa Page, you have Baker, you have a whole list of people. There's a lot of crooked stuff going on. But it is interesting. It always seems to go the way of the Democrats. Now in Arizona, all of a sudden, out of the wilderness, they find a lot of votes, and the other candidate is just winning by a hair. What's going on in Florida is a disgrace. Go down and see what happened over the last period of time, 10 years. Take a look at Broward County. Take a look at the total dishonesty of what happened with respect to Broward County. Broward County, just press, Broward County /election. There's a lot of dishonesty.
There sure is, and they're all appointed by Republicans to control the vote in Florida. And when they don't do their jobs properly, when they don't control the vote in Florida. Now, let me tell you what the problem in Broward County is real quick, okay? Just know this. In Broward County, you had 24,000 votes, more votes for the governor's race than you did for the senator's race. Seriously, in Broward County, we're supposed to believe that people skipped voting for Bill Nelson or what's his face, Rick Scott. We're supposed to believe people went to the polls and decided, 24,000 of them decided to vote for governor, but not for the senator. And this happened in no other county except for Broward. Broward! Here's another little detail. The agriculture commissioner's race got more votes than the Senate race did. Oh, yeah. Here's another statistic. The attorney general's race in Florida got more votes than the senator's race. Do you know why? The ballot in Florida, especially in Frederica Wilson, remember Frederica Wilson, the one that, General, Kelly called an empty barrel liar? Yeah, and she was vindicated? Okay, she wasn't on the ballot. Her name was not on the ballot. Do you know why? Because she was running unopposed. There was no primary. So she was sure to win. You didn't have to vote for her. She was, I think I'm getting that right. But her name was not on the ballot. That's another thing, okay? And then, so they had the instructions on the ballot on the left side. And then way below the instructions on the same left side, which is against best practices, okay? That's where they put the Senate race. It was a ballot design thing, okay? And so many people didn't even see it there, so they started at the top. And at the top was the governor's race, no Senate race, no House race. And people did not vote for senator. Now, you better hope that they marked it somehow, that they saw it somehow, because if they left it blank, Rick Scott's your governor, your senator. But they made a fraud. They made a ballot that was so ugly, and it actually, the people that write the best practices rules for ballots actually told Broward County, especially and it's so decentralized that each district had a different thing going on. But they told Broward County, this is like the butterfly ballot. People are not going to see this. Don't do it this way. Don't do it this way. But Brenda Snipes did do it this way, and it's been a disaster. So you had tens of thousands of people voting for every other thing, from agriculture commissioner to the attorney general, but not for the Senate. And it only happened in one county, Broward County. Yeah.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Quick, Mark Elias is coming in. He's a Clinton attorney. And guess what? Works for Perkins Coie. And guess what? They hired Fusion GPS, who hired Christopher Steele. We're back in the dossier conversation. Mark Elias is back in our lives as a country. The Clinton lawyers are here, and they're going to start putting a lawsuit together that the Senate vote, the punch for the Senate, was way on the bottom of the ballot, separate, making it hard for people to vote.
That's exactly what happened. That's Marco Rubio sitting there on the TV this morning. And I'm sure Trump saw it on the TV because that's what Trump said.
You guys signed an executive order on birthright citizenship this week. Why did that? We're working well because other things have come up, and we will be signing it soon. It's a political stunt? No. We're signing it. We're doing it, and it'll probably work its way up to the Supreme Court. Birthright citizenship probably works its way up to the Supreme Court. It will be signed. We wanted a perfect document. And because of the election and all of the delays in the election and whatever's going on in Broward County, remember the word, Broward County.
Broward!
Wait, well, you take a look at the past. Take a look at the past. And all of a sudden, they're finding votes. You mean after the election, they're finding votes? And then you look at her past where she's already been convicted, and now they're finding votes. And you have this guy, Elias, who represented Hillary Clinton and a lot of very shady things. I think what you ought to do is get smart. Good luck, folks.
What a prick, okay? I can't even... He watched television, and then he decided... First of all, he says, so everybody's like, where's the caravan? What's with the birthright? So, oh, no, we want a perfect, I don't know what. You can't undo the Constitution by executive order. That aside, no, but I'm very busy with Broward. Remember Broward County. And he's talking about Brenda Snipes. She's been convicted. No, Brenda Snipes has never been convicted. Her office was sued. Yeah, her office was sued. You know by who? Does anybody remember Tim Canova? He was on our show. Tim Canova was running as an independent against Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the Democrat. And Tim Canova wanted to review his ballots in his primary, okay? He wanted to look at those ballots, and Brenda Snipes, the Broward County election supervisor, destroyed them. That's what happened. She literally destroyed them. That's who you got in charge of Broward. And he's now blaming the people, the ones that were supposed to be there to control the vote in the first place, because they can't control the vote. Because there's too many people watching now. They're such idiots. Let me tell you, this Broward office has always been a problem. So is Palm Beach. Know why? Know why, everybody? We're Democrats. We're Democrats. Take a look at the map. Take a look at the voting map. You see all that blue? Guess what that is? At the tip of the penis? That's Miami, which is Miami-Dade. That's Fort Lauderdale, which is Broward. And that's Palm Beach County. And we're all Democrats here. 2003, they mismanaged an election. You had a Democratic primary for governor, and we had an election supervisor then, and she was removed from office by Jeb Bush. And Jeb Bush then appointed this one. And then Snipes, her office, in 2016, sent out some absentee ballots to voters and failed to include on the ballot the medical marijuana measure that actually passed by wide margins. She failed to include it on the mail-out ballots. She was sued for that then. She was sued by the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. And then, in another case during the 2016 election, she mailed out about 1,700 ballots that had the word no on the line that should have said yes in Creole. Because we have a very large Haitian population. And so where it's supposed to say oui, it said no. And then in 2016, the Republican Party of Florida threatened to sue her because they didn't like the way she was opening absentee ballots. That went away. They were like satisfied with her back then. I mean, Rick Scott's been the governor this whole time. She was hauled into court in a federal lawsuit over the way her office removes ineligible voters from the rolls. She won that court case. However, she did lose another lawsuit that was filed in the Debbie Wasserman Schultz race because she destroyed those ballots and Tim Canova requested to review them and he couldn't because she got rid of them. Bill Nelson's lawyer is Mark Elias. And now they're accusing the lawyer of doing something when you know you have an election supervisor under Rick Scott's gubernatorial power that has been there since Jeb with all these laws, and nobody ever bothered to take her out of there. Now, Mark Elias says he doesn't know if Nelson will win, but he thinks that it will tighten because he said he's an election protection attorney. He's been an election protection guy on dozens and dozens and dozens of post-election disputes. And he told the reporters today that sometimes he tells his client the race might be close, but you still might not win. He said that is not the conversation that I had with Bill Nelson, with Senator Nelson. He said, I believe that Nelson is going to prevail. Because there was a large undervote in Broward County. Voters casting ballots that indicated they voted in other races, but not the Senate race. 14,000 more people voted for Attorney General than voted for the Senate. They just apparently, didn't vote. That doesn't make any sense. And it only happened in one county in all of Florida. It only happened in Broward County. This is just, and Rick Scott, I will not sit idly by while unethical liberals try to steal this election from the people of Florida. Those liberals are the people of Florida, Rick. That's why you have to do this crap. And Trump was all day, this whole morning, just attacking, it's the dossier guy. Oh, it's this, oh, it's that. I mean, he kept on going. He kept on going.
But you notice the votes never go the other way? They hire lawyers, and the votes don't ever seem to go the Republican way. Although I hear, I don't know, you tell me, it's always the Democrats. It's always GPS fusion. It's always crooked stuff. Look at what happened. How many FBI are gone? How many Justice Department people are gone? That I found out. There's a lot.
He makes me crazy. because people actually believe him. And that, I mean, you know, he wouldn't bother me. He wouldn't make me crazy if I understood that people would just laugh and say, oh, he's so crazy. He's just such a liar. He's just so, how does one thing have to do with another? You know, how does the state's election have anything to, you know, all manned by Republicans, Republican Secretary of State, Republican governor, Republican supervisors, appointed by Republicans. I will tell you, the judge just ordered that Brenda Snipes allow immediate inspection of the voter records. They had an emergency hearing today at 2 o'clock. Here's the result. The court was asked to intervene in the Senate race between Bill Nelson and Rick Scott. Judge Carol Lisa Phillips said that Brenda Snipes must allow inspections on or before 7 o'clock tonight. The judge found that Snipes violated the law by failing to turn over the information to attorneys for Scott's Senate campaign and the National Republican Senatorial Committee. The lawyers for Snipes argued that requiring such a swift response would interfere with ongoing efforts to finish the counting. But Scott said the information is something that's required and he wants it and she should produce it. It's a circle jerk down here. They're suing each other. He has been the governor the whole time this woman has been called into court over and over and over again for doing various nefarious things. And it's all been okay with him until now. She is not refusing to turn over the records. She says she just needs more time to do so. You know, Rick Scott called the law enforcement on her. I swear to God, he called FDLE, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, to investigate the elections offices in Palm Beach and Broward counties. The FDLE has said they're not going to investigate. They're not going to do it. Put your request in writing, they told him. I mean, this is what they do. This is what they do every single... I told you, Florida will never disappoint you when it comes to an election. No. And that's why I always tell you, it can't be close. It can't be close, because when it's close, they steal it. This is Florida, for God's sake. And Trump just tweeted, "Don't worry, Florida. I'm sending much better lawyers to expose the," all caps, "fraud." Oh, please, please, please let that mean he's sending Rudy Giuliani. Please, 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 please let that mean he's... Come on, Rudy. Let's go. Because then Gilliam Nelson would be as good as elected. Oh, my God. See, this is Florida. This is what... And Arizona. Oh, my God. You got some crazy crap, too. You know, in Arizona, the Republicans are going to the court to ask them to stop counting the votes. You still have 400,000 ballots out. 400,000 ballots are still not counted in Arizona in your elections. And the more that they count in Maricopa County, which is where the majority of those votes are out, the more Christian Cinema gets ahead, because that's a Democratic stronghold. And now you got a lawsuit that is literally challenging a representative-elect. They're challenging her in court because the crazy Republicans say she's not a citizen. It's a birther thing. She has a birth certificate. She was served papers at home, and she has a freaking birth certificate. She is an American, and they're birthering her. That's sick. CJ in Phoenix.
Raquel is my dear friend, and you're right, it is sick.
So that's her name, Raquel Tehran.
Tehran, yes. She's a wonderful activist who won in an overwhelmingly Democratic district. She actually won in the primary. But
well, you know who's bringing this lawsuit? This Republican candidate and a conspiracy theorist. Mm-hmm. She is saying to the court with a straight face that there's a secret plot by immigrants to recapture the southwestern United States from Mexico.
I haven't seen that article, but that does not sound unfeasible.
I'm not kidding. I'm serious. The lawsuit cites no evidence for the claim. It was filed by Alice Novoa in Maricopa County Superior Court. She ran unsuccessfully as a write-in candidate for Secretary of State this year, and she is a conspiracy theorist and a Republican. And she has alleged in this lawsuit that was served on the Representative-elect Raquel Tehran's home today that there's a secret plot by immigrants to recapture the southwest of the United States by Mexicans.
Yeah, last night she was at home writing her thank you letters to her constituents.
They will stop at nothing. I'm telling you, this is just bizarre.
The other drama that's going on down here in Maricopa County with the Republicans going on with the Democratic county recorder, Adrian Fontes, who's the recorder here, has followed longstanding procedures of verifying signatures for the ballots that are received before Election Day as well as after Election Day.
Right.
And now they sued to stop that.
Yes.
And they lost in their preliminary one, so they changed it and said instead we should have all the counties count the same way. And he's like, fine, have them all count that way. That's just going to be better for everybody. And the Republicans, they're hearing it at 2 o'clock this afternoon. I haven't heard of the outcome of it yet, though.
Well,
how they turned out.
Oh, you had a hearing at 2 o'clock? Yeah, we had one too. Now I know how ours turned out. I haven't looked at yours. I will look at yours. But yeah, 75% of you guys there vote by mail, and they have that exact match signature thing. Right.
I'm an inspector at my precinct.
Yeah.
And at my polling precinct, and we had 250 voters, which was about average for us.
Right.
But we had twice as many people coming in and just dropping off their ballots, and those are the ones that are now in the process of being counted.
Okay, and that's what I wanted to explain to people as well, and I'm glad you're on the phone to egg me to tell that 75% of Arizonans vote by mail, and they are allowed to drop those ballots off in person on Election Day.
Up until 7 o'clock, close the polls. Yeah.
Right, and so that's why there's 400,000 uncounted ballots, because they came on Election Day, but because they were the mail-in type, they had to sign the outside of the envelope and the inside, right?
And so what the Republicans were in court were saying that after 7 p.m., the county recorder should stop verifying the signature. So what happens is when they get to the snap boards, is what they're called, the two people, the Democrat and Republican, look at the signatures compared to what it's supposed to be. If they agree that it's the same one, it goes on to be counted. If they don't, then it goes on to a signature expert.
Right.
But they also have the opportunity of calling the voter to say, hey, did you do this? And if they say yes, they have a 5-day window to come in and provide the identification to sign an affidavit and say that was them that voted. And the suit that Republicans came up was that that was all right, them doing that, but once the election, the 7 o'clock time frame ended, they had to stop doing that.
Huh.
And that's when that's the one that the court initially said no. That if they've been doing it, they should keep doing it. So then the Republicans that sued went back and changed it.
Okay,
and said,
here's an easy way to understand this, everybody. If you are online at 7 o'clock, you get to vote. So if you handed in your ballot before 7 o'clock, but they weren't able to verify your signature because they had so many, why should they not count your vote?
And I think that's what the judge expected, and that's why he ruled.
Of course that's what the judge said. I mean, it makes no sense. What, it's 7 o'clock, so we just stopped counting votes that came in before 7 o'clock because we couldn't verify them before 7 o'clock when they were dropped off properly? Listen,
Randy, really quick.
You know what we need? We need one way to freaking vote in this country.
Kirsten's going to win. Ducey's going to appoint McSally to take McCain's old seat. That's what's going to happen.
You think so?
I know it.
That's like King Solomon. That's like splitting
and that way McSally will still be the first women senator from Arizona. I can feel it. It's a douchey move.
It is very douchey, but he's douchey. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for that.
Yeah. Bye.
Okay. You see what I mean? This is crazy. So you have 400,000 not even counted in Arizona. Lawsuits by the Republicans. Stop counting. Stop counting. The judge going, no. They were in properly. You're just too slow.
To speak to Randy, call 561-270-3844.
561-270-3844. If you look at Broward and Palm Beach to a lesser extent, if you look at Broward County, they have had a horrible history.
They sure have.
And if you look at the person, in this case a woman, involved, she has had a horrible history. And all of a sudden, they're finding votes out of nowhere. And Rick Scott, who won by, it was close, but he won by a comfortable margin. Every couple of hours, it goes down a little bit. And then you see the people, and they were involved with that fraud of the fake dossier, the phony dossier.
Oh, Jesus.
And I guess I hear they were somehow involved or worked with the GPS fusion people. who have committed. I mean, you look at what they've done. You look at the dishonesty. Look. There's bad things have gone on in Broward County.
Yeah.
Really bad things.
Yeah.
She's been to court. She's had a lot of problems. She's lost. I say this. He easily won. But every hour it seems to be going down. I think that people have to look at it very, very cautiously.
He did not easily anything. It's super freaking tight. I told you it's tighter than the proverbial hair, okay? You had vote by mail absentee ballots come in on election day. You had 7,600 of them the day before and then you had 1.2 million registered voters. You had 125,000 absentee ballots received statewide on election day. That's Tuesday alone. And you got a really bad election supervisor there who's been sued. I can't tell you how many times. And the last time she was sued by the Democrat, Tim Canova. And she destroyed all his freaking ballots. They're suing each other now to get the result that they want. I just saw Miami, the Brooks brothers, the khaki people. They're here. They're going to start pounding on the election counting window. The recount is tomorrow. Here in Florida, there's a recount, and it's going to happen tomorrow. And they're already here, and they're already protesting. This mob that always shows up in Florida. They're not from Florida. They're, congressional interns and staffers, and they come in here, and they start pounding on the glass, and they start pounding on the supervisor's door. They start screaming, "Let us in, let us in." I mean, these are mobs. They are absolute freaking mobs. And, of course, the court process has already started, and God only knows how far this one's going to go. But, they haven't even counted the provisional ballots yet. They haven't even looked at them. And that's where a voter's eligibility is in dispute, and they haven't even looked at that. And then, as an added extra twist, you have a school teacher at Miramar Elementary School, okay, in Broward County. Miramar is just a little nice little town. Her name was Lakeisha Sori, and she said she noticed in the old cafeteria of the school that Broward election workers left behind a box labeled provisional ballot box. And she went and told her principal. She filmed it and went and told her principal because she didn't want to touch it because they would accuse her, God knows. I mean, and so she just filmed it and told her principal and said, something's going on. I don't know why these are just sitting here. I'm not really sure, but I don't want to touch it. I'm calling you, my principal. She said, I don't know if it contains ballots. Quote, I don't want anybody to say I tamper with anything. I just want to make sure that if there are votes in there, that they're counted. It makes me question everything that's going on here. Just the fact that I want everyone's vote to be counted. We don't know how many votes are left to be counted. That's what Rick Scott sued for. He wants to know how many votes are out, so he knows how hard to fight and how much money to spend and how many protesters he's going to need. But we know that 23,000 vote-by-mail ballots are not counted. I mean, this is just insane. This is insane. In the Gillum race, it's below 0.5% difference. And we know that this woman destroyed Tim Canova's ballots, and she couldn't produce them, even though he won. She couldn't produce them. She was hauled into court. She purges voters from the rolls. She does all kinds of stuff, this woman. And then somebody took a video of a private automobile in Broward County being taken and being put into a private car, which violates all the chain of custody rules for ballots, but...
Like, really? Look, this lady is bringing ballots out of her car. Like, bringing ballots out of her car from apparently this building. I don't know. I'm not real sure what's going on here. Unless these are people coming from other precincts. Sir, officer, are these people coming from other precincts? Is that what's happening? So they let them transport them with one person in the car from other precincts? Apparently so, huh? That doesn't seem right, does it? So apparently Broward County allows people to drive from other precincts by themselves. There's people with just one person in the car here. And they let them just drive over with the ballots.
Now, that's a woman named Joanna Knox, and she gave that video to Tim Canova, who put it on his Instagram page last night. That violates every chain of custody rule that there is for the sanctity of the ballot. I mean, God only knows what goes on here. This is crazy. And the Republicans are going to start banging on the doors any second now. Banging. Let us in. Let us in. This is sick. This is twisted. This is crazy. I can't. Why America cannot vote is so bizarre. But this is real banana republic stuff, and it was back in 2000. You'd think 18 years later they would have learned something. They didn't learn jack crap. Rich in Denver.
Hey, happy Friday to you, Randy.
Happy Friday.
Love it. You are awesome. I love you, Randy. Yeah, it's like you said the other day. I tried to call in. It's like, they can put a man on the moon. They can get your tax statement down to the umpteenth. But in Florida, it's like, it's just. And I was thinking the same thing. After 18 years, all by Republicans as well. There's where your rigging's going, idiot boy. Look back at 18 years ago at the presidential election.
Oh God.
It's ridiculous. He talks about all these people who've left. There's more people who've left or been indicted or fired out of your cabinet than anybody in the FBI.
Oh, please, I know. Nobody.
He's just full of crap.
He is full of crap. And he put a guy who isn't legally qualified, he isn't legally eligible to be the Attorney General, the guy in charge of the Justice Department, the Department of Justice, for God's sake. And he lied today and said, you know what he said today? Today he said, I don't even know Whitaker. I don't even know him. And then, you know what? Scott went back and he remembered seeing on Fox News Donald Trump being interviewed, and they asked him about Whitaker, and he goes, oh, he's a great guy. I know him. He's such a good guy. It's just, this is amazing. This is like Donald Trump when he lies. The first thing he says, like Felix Sater, he goes, oh, I couldn't pick him out of a lineup. I don't even know him. Oh, Paul Manafort, I hardly really know him. He only worked for me for a very short time. This is what he does. This is what he does.
I don't know, Randy. I don't know. I say to people, we've had this conversation before. When these people never wake up and learn, I said they could lose their kids, lose their home, get a terminal disease, and they keep. What has a fucking con ever done for you in your history? Ever has a Republican ever done for you? They got 5 basic issues they've run on, and they can't. Reagan was caging votes back in the 80s, and the Supreme Court ordered him to stop it. They have been doing this shit since Christ was a child, and people just keep fucking for this bullshit and just falling for it, I will say, we here in Colorado, I think we're going to finally get some sensible gun regulation. Randy, we got the House, we got the Senate.
Oh, you did great.
Openly gay governor in Polis,
Yeah,
we
Polis.
got first black man going from the state, to serve in the. And Kristen Sinema, I think she's going to win. I absolutely hope she wins. But like you said, 600,000 votes out there, and we can't get and it's all these red states. Arizona, Florida, Georgia.
Yes,
I'm like, I
Georgia.
don't know why they can't get here in Oregon.
I mean, this is so listen, can you imagine? I mean, how much more is it going to take for everyone to understand that we are under siege, that we're really under attack? The country is literally being attacked from within. We have a guy who, by the way, this Whitaker dude, he was the head of a company that was a fraudulent company and bilking people in Miami, of all places, out of $26 million. The court found that they were committing fraud. That's this Whitaker dude, okay? He's now in charge of the Justice Department. You got people who can't vote in Arizona or can't get their votes counted, which is more important. They can't vote in Arizona. They can't get their votes counted in Florida. In Georgia, they couldn't even get their ballots. They were told they couldn't have their ballots. I played you videos of 92-year-old civil rights. It's not just her. There's a million stories of people being told that they couldn't access their ballot. They weren't going to be given in their ballot. It's so vile. It's so disgusting. What's going on in this country? What more does it take for everybody to understand? We are in meltdown mode. This is a crisis. This is the beginning of the end of democracy. I mean, back then it was just one state that they rigged, okay? One state at a time. Now it's it's all over the place. You got illegitimate people at the Justice Department. You got a Chester the molester on the Supreme Court. You had the FBI not even allowed to.
3/5 of the Supreme Court, Randy.
Oh my God! Oh, and poor Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She fell and fractured 3 of her ribs. I almost had a heart attack yesterday.
Yeah, me too.
Holy crap! Now this is just so bad, and every single person that's left is a dead ender. They're going to go down the tubes with Donald Trump. They are so devoted because they think that he's got people mesmerized. He's got people hypnotized. He's got the con going. And holy crap. This is it,
it's like
man.
You said,
this
P.T.
is it.
Barnum,
It is.
Born every minute.
Yeah, but this is the moment of truth, man. This is really it. This is court packing. This is not being able to get your vote counted. This is in Georgia being purged or being denied access to your ballot. This is, I've never seen anything like this. Like I said, he's very good at concurrent disasters. Holy crap. We got mass murder everywhere.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
Well, Matt Whitaker, I don't know Matt Whitaker. Matt Whitaker worked for Jeff Sessions, and he was always extremely highly thought of, and he still is. But I didn't know Matt Whitaker. He worked for Attorney General Sessions. He was very, very highly thought of, and still is highly thought of. But this only comes up because anybody that works for me, they do a number on them. But Matt Whitaker is a very smart man. He is a very respected man in the law enforcement community, very respected at the top of the line. And actually, the choice was greeted with raves initially, and it still is in some circles on, it's a shame that no matter who I put in, they go after him. It's very, very sad, I have to say. But he's acting. I think he'll do a very good job, and we'll see what happens. But I will say this. Matt Whitaker is a very highly respected man, and you didn't have any problems with Matt Whitaker when he worked for Jeff Sessions. He's respected by law enforcement. He's a very strong law enforcement personality and person.
Okay, there's so much there. First of all, just remember he said he doesn't know Matt Whitaker. He doesn't know him. He worked for Jeff Sessions. He was chief of staff to Jeff Sessions. He doesn't know him. He doesn't know him. And he's highly respected by law enforcement. And he repeats himself over and over and over. It's a very weird thing he does. Liars do that. They just repeat the lie over and over and over and I don't know him. I don't know him. I don't know him. Very respected. He's very respected, strongly respected by law enforcement. Before he worked at the Department of Justice, Whitaker's job was working for a patent scam company that a federal court hit up for $25 million in a settlement and shut it down. Who thinks highly of a person who commits $25 million worth of fraud? Oh, that's right, the MAGA people. It's just like Trump. That's exactly what he did with the Trump University fraud scam. I mean, this is just so unbelievable. But remember, he says he doesn't know him, okay? He doesn't know him. He never met him, has no idea who he is. Okay, everybody, this is Fox News from a couple of weeks ago.
One other question, though. In the Washington Post this morning, it says that you talked to the Attorney General's chief of staff about replacing the Attorney General. Apparently, according to the Post, you talked to Matthew Whitaker, but the conversation was nebulous, they depicted as. It wasn't clear whether you wanted him to replace him on an interim basis or he would be nominated on a more permanent basis. Anything to that story?
Well, I never talk about that, but I can tell you Matt Whitaker is a great guy. I mean, I know Matt Whitaker, but I never talk about conversations that I had. But, you know, the Washington... I don't know Matt Whitaker. I mean, I know Matt Whitaker. I don't know Matt Whitaker. I mean, I know Matt Whitaker. I don't know Matt Whitaker. I mean, I know Matt Whitaker.
Does anybody in their right mind, and this is now the caveat, right? In your right mind, think that Donald Trump would put somebody in charge of the Mueller investigation that he didn't know? Does anybody think that that would be a possibility with Donald Trump, that he would choose a staffer of Jeff Sessions, no less, that he did not know and was not in the succession order, that he would pluck out this constitutional nobody if he didn't know him to be in charge of Mueller, to supervise? Does anybody believe that? This is some sick crap that's going on here.
I don't know Matt Whitaker. I mean, I know Matt Whitaker. I don't know Matt Whitaker. I mean, I know Matt Whitaker. I don't know Matt Whitaker. I mean, I know Matt Whitaker. I don't know Matt Whitaker. I mean, I know Matt Whitaker.
Matt Whitaker is his stooge, just like Kavanaugh is his stooge. Matt Whitaker actually looks like Curly. He looks like one of the three stooges if Curly had a problem with steroids. Right? No, look at him. This was a man that worked for a patent company, selling trying to, tell people that their inventions were going to go all the way if they just paid him. And he would, take their patent and he would market it for them and blah, blah. And the whole thing was just a stinking scam. The company was operating here in Miami, for God's sake. In Miami. We actually have a little clip of him doing that. Which one is it? Do you know? I don't know. Yeah, me too. I got like 50 clips or something today because this man gave an unhinged little he's on his way to Paris for Veterans Day. Whose side is he on? It's just so bad. It's just so bad. This is unbelievable. Kellyanne Conway's husband, George Conway III, he's a Roman numeral, everybody, and Neil Katyal, who wrote the independent counsel statute, put a op-ed in the New York Times today saying that this Whitaker dude is a constitutional nobody and should not be able to be in charge of the Justice Department because he is not a Senate-confirmed cabinet member. Oh, okay. Here's him selling hot tubs when he worked for that company.
Tub swivel seat, because it's a unique design that's going to help lots of people that have mobility issues get in and use their hot tub in a safe manner.
That's your Attorney General, everybody. Trying to promote a handicapped hot tub. Oh, my God. And the company was shut down, and he was on the board of directors, and he was obviously active. He wasn't a passive, board of directors. He was doing, and people, filed complaints, and the court found for the people that he was taking money from and ordered that company to pay $25 million. That's who is respected by law enforcement. That's who. And then Trump is sitting there lying this morning about Whitaker. He literally went on. Listen to him repeat himself in this. This is just so frightening. Okay, this really, really gave me the shivers. Only because I could see how mentally ill he is. I really could see it in this particular clip. The repetitiveness, the insisting that what is false is true. He's going to tell you in this clip that Matt Whitaker is Senate confirmed and that Robert Mueller is not. Okay, Robert Mueller was Senate confirmed to be the FBI director twice. He was Senate confirmed in 2001, and then when his term was over, he had to be confirmed again. And so he was confirmed again in 2011. They had a whole separate hearing in the Senate I tweeted it out, the whole hearing I tweeted out on my Twitter feed to show you that Mueller was not only Senate confirmed once, but twice to be the chief law enforcement officer at the FBI, right? To be the director of the FBI. Now, Matt Whitaker was a U.S. attorney once in Iowa in 2004. He was Senate confirmed to that job, but then it lapsed. And he's not been confirmed for this job. Now, let me also tell you, Robert Mueller doesn't even need to be Senate confirmed. Why? Because Robert Mueller is what you call an inferior officer. What is an inferior officer? That means he's supervised by a Senate confirmed person. And that Senate confirmed person is Rod Rosenstein. Now they want it to be Whitaker, who's not Senate confirmed. What does it mean to be a principal officer? What's the definition? Super easy, everybody. If you're a principal officer, you only answer to the President of the United States. You don't have a supervisor, except for the President of the United States. So who would that be? The Attorney General of the United States, the FBI director, the EPA director, all the cabinet positions. They're Senate confirmed, and they report only to the President. They're called principal officers. They all have to be Senate confirmed. You cannot be in charge of the Justice Department. You can't be the Attorney General of the United States without being confirmed to be the principal officer, the Attorney General of the United States. Here's your president, though.
Matt Whitaker has not gone through a Senate process.
Yeah, but neither has Mueller. Excuse me. You talk about the Senate process. Mueller is doing a report. He hasn't gone through the Senate process. So you're saying Whitaker hasn't, but Whitaker has. Wait a minute. Because he was a really distinguished U.S. attorney in Iowa, and he was approved by everybody, because to be U.S. attorney, that's top of the line. He was a highly respected, in fact, I'll tell you, the ambassador to China, as you know, Terry Branstad, who used to be the governor of Iowa, he told me that what a great choice that is, that he is one of the most respected people in all of Iowa. And that was coming from Terry Branstad, who was the governor. Look, Mueller, a big complaint people have, Mueller was not Senate confirmed. So he's doing a report. He wasn't Senate confirmed. Whitaker was Senate confirmed. And now he doesn't need this, but he was Senate confirmed at the highest level when he was the U.S. attorney from Iowa. But Mueller was not Senate confirmed. Why didn't they get him Senate confirmed? He should have been Senate confirmed. Because of all the conflicts, they didn't want to bring him before the Senate because he's very conflicted. So because of those conflicts, they didn't want to bring him before the Senate. But don't tell me about Whitaker. Don't tell me about Whitaker because Mueller was not Senate confirmed.
Holy crap. That's the president. Holy crap. Okay, here's the editorial that was written by Neil Katyal, who wrote the statute under which Mueller serves as an inferior officer, reporting to a Senate-confirmed officer, Rosenstein, in tandem with George Conway III. Oh, he trashed George Conway. Wow, listen to this.
Kellyanne's husband wrote that
You mean Mr. Kellyanne Conway?
Oh my God!
You were unconstitutionally appointed, and is he wrong?
He's just trying to get publicity for himself. Why don't you do this? Why don't you ask Kellyanne that question? All right. She might know him better than me. I really don't know the guy.
He doesn't know him. He doesn't know Kellyanne Conway's husband. He doesn't know him. Ask Kellyanne, okay? She might know him better than me. In the ultimate loyalty test, the question here is, will you throw your own husband under the bus? I don't believe Kellyanne will disappoint. I really don't. He can split individual families just the way he splits us down the ass crack. All right, here is what Kellyanne Conway's husband and Neil Katyal, who wrote the statute, okay, put in the New York Times today. What now seems an eternity ago, the conservative law professor Stephen Calabrese pushed in an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal in May, arguing that Robert Mueller's appointment as special counsel was unconstitutional. His article got a lot of attention, and it wasn't long before President Trump picked up the argument, tweeting the appointment of the special counsel is totally, all in caps, unconstitutional. Professor Calabresi's article was based on the Appointments Clause of the Constitution, Article 2, Section 2, Clause 2. Under that provision, so-called principal officers of the United States must be nominated by the president and confirmed by the Senate under its advise and consent powers. He argued that Mr. Mueller was a principal officer because he's exercising significant law enforcement authority, and that since he has not been confirmed by the Senate, his appointment was unconstitutional. He was wrong. What makes an officer a principal officer is that he or she only reports to the president. No one else in government is that person's boss. But Robert Mueller reports to Rod Rosenstein, the deputy attorney general. So Mueller is known as an inferior officer, not a principal one. And his appointment without Senate approval was valid. But Professor Calabresi and Mr. Trump were right about the core principle. A principal officer must be confirmed by the Senate. And that has a very significant consequence today. It means that Mr. Trump's installation of Matthew Whitaker as acting Attorney General of the United States, after forcing the resignation of Jeff Sessions, is unconstitutional. It is illegal. And it means that anything Mr. Whitaker does or tries to do in that position is invalid. Much of the commentary about Mr. Whitaker's appointment is focused on all sorts of technical points about the Vacancies Reform Act. Yes, I read that to you yesterday. It's 2 lousy paragraphs. And Justice Department succession statutes. But the flaw in the appointment of Mr. Whitaker, who was Jeff Sessions' chief of staff, runs much deeper. It defies one of the explicit checks and balances set out in the Constitution, a provision designed to protect all of us against the centralization of government power. If you don't believe us, then take it from Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, whom Mr. Trump once called his favorite sitting justice. Last year, the Supreme Court examined the question of whether the general counsel of the National Labor Relations Board had been lawfully appointed to his job without Senate confirmation. The Supreme Court held the appointment was invalid on a statutory ground. Justice Thomas agreed with the judgment and wrote separately to emphasize that even if the statute had allowed the appointment, the Constitution Appointments Clause would not have. The officer in question was the principal officer, he concluded, and the public interest was protected by the Appointments Clause, and that was critical. The Constitution's drafters, Justice Thomas, argued, and this is what Clarence Thomas wrote, quote, recognize the serious risk for abuse and corruption posed by permitting one person to fill every office in the government. Which is why, he points out, the framers provided for advice and consent of the Senate, so that one man could not pick the head of the FBI. One man and use it for political purposes. So one man couldn't pick the attorney general and use his office to retaliate against American citizens. The Senate had to weigh whether or not that person was sufficiently dedicated to the law. What goes for a mere lawyer at the NLRB, the National Labor Relations Board, goes in spades for the Attorney General of the United States, the head of the Justice Department, one of the most important people in the federal government. It is one thing to appoint an acting underling, like an acting solicitor general, a post one of us held. That'd be Neil Katyal. But those officials are always supervised by higher-ups. In the case of the solicitor general, by the attorney general and the deputy attorney general, both confirmed by the Senate. Mr. Whitaker has not been named to some junior post, 1 or 2 levels below the Justice Department's top job. He has now been vested with the law enforcement authority of the entire United States government, including the power to supervise Senate-confirmed officials like the Deputy Attorney General, like the Solicitor General, and all the U.S. attorneys. We cannot tolerate such an evasion of the Constitution's very explicit, textually precise design. Senate confirmation exists for a simple and good reason. Constitutionally, Matthew Whitaker is a nobody. His job as Sessions Chief of Staff did not require Senate confirmation. Yes, he was confirmed as a federal prosecutor in Iowa in 2004. But when he stepped away from that job, any job that he took that required Senate confirmation to that new job. You can't cut and paste an old, lapsed confirmation to this day and date. Can't do it. Can't have it, Sally. Can't do it. I can't do it. I can't have it. For the president to install Mr. Whitaker as our chief law enforcement officer is to betray the entire structure of our charter document, the Constitution. And then they go on to talk about in times of crisis or disease and wars or other tragic events, it's understandable that may have to pick somebody who isn't if nobody else who is Senate confirmed is at hand. But there are people at hand. You have the Deputy Attorney General. You have the Solicitor General. You have the Deputy Solicitor General. They were all nominated by Trump, and they were all confirmed by the Senate. And any of them could step in as acting Attorney General, both constitutionally and statutorily. Because Mr. Whitaker has not undergone the process of Senate confirmation, there has been no mechanism for scrutinizing whether or not he has the character or ability or to even-handedly enforce the law in a position of such grave responsibility. The public is entitled to that assurance, especially since Mr. Whitaker's only supervisor is Donald Trump himself, and the president is hopelessly compromised by the Mueller investigation. And that is why adherence to the requirements of the appointment clause is so important here and always. And then they go on to tell us that the Constitution is a bipartisan document written for the ages to guard against wrongdoing by officials of any party. And Mr. Whitaker's installation makes a mockery of our Constitution and of the ideals of the founders. As Justice Thomas's opinion in the NLRB case reminds us, the Constitution's framers, quote, had lived under a form of government that permitted arbitrary governmental acts to happen unchecked. They knew that liberty could be preserved only by ensuring that the powers of the government would never be consolidated in one man. And then he freaking lies about it. I don't know him. I don't know him. I know him. I know him. I don't know him. I don't know him. I know him. I know him. Mueller wasn't confirmed. Mueller was confirmed twice to be the FBI director. But this position that Mueller is in does not require Senate confirmation. Does everybody now know why? Okay? Here, repeat after me. Because he reports to a Senate-confirmed officer. That would be Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General. As long as Mueller is supervised by Rosenstein, which he is, he does not have to be Senate confirmed. And we know this because that is what Neil Catchall wrote in the statute when he created the statute that authorizes the independent counsel or the special counsel. This is so sick and twisted. I swear to God, I can't even breathe when I think about it. And Neil Catchall was actually asked about this.
Yeah, so, I'm kind of old school about this. I've always kind of thought attorneys generals need to be confirmed by the Senate, that you couldn't just install your own lackey in. And by old school, I mean, I'm just talking about the founding design of the Constitution. And that's really what the piece I wrote with George Conway is about, which is, why do we have this thing called Senate confirmation? Because in Article 2 of our Constitution, it says that the president can't install heads of the department on his own, that there's a whole deep reason for this. And Justice Thomas, who happens to be the president's favorite justice, just wrote an opinion about this a couple of years ago, and he said, look, our founders are worried about maybe we're going to have a corrupt president one day, and you can't just have him install his lackeys in as heads of the department, because that would destroy the checks and balances in the executive branch itself.
It's interesting, Neil, that there are quite a few conservatives, not just conservative attorneys and conservative constitutional scholars, but even rank-and-file, hardcore conservatives like Eric Erickson, who says, just to be clear, you can have an acting attorney general like Sally Yates, but you cannot have an acting attorney general who has not been through a confirmation process for an AG position. Yates was confirmed as a deputy AG. Whitaker has not. And of course, there's a professor and a constitutional lawyer who was about as expansive for George W. Bush in framing presidential authority. And even he came out saying, wait, this is so unconstitutional. A president does not have this authority.
Yeah, that's 100% right. So obviously you can have emergency situations and the attorney general dies or is forced out or something like that. You need to have someone temporarily to fill their place. But that's always been understood to be someone who is Senate confirmed. And here you've got a whole bunch of people who are Senate confirmed, like the deputy attorney general, like the solicitor general. And when Congress confirms those people, they know, well, one day those people could step in if the attorney general resigns or something like that. But we've never had a situation like this, certainly not in our lifetimes, in which the president kind of reaches down into the bowels of the Justice Department to pick his lackey, skipping over all the people in the line of succession at the Justice Department, which is actually something enumerated by law, by Congress. I think there's a deeper fundamental problem here, which is it really underscores this president's constitutional insouciance. When I served in the Justice Department, I have twice now, I think one of the things we thought the most about was, look, you have these emergency authorities. You can use them in terrorism and cabinet, things and all sorts of stuff. But you have to be really circumspect in using them, because those laws are written broadly for a reason, which is there may be some real crisis. What's the crisis here that requires skipping over the people in the Justice Department who've been Senate confirmed? There's only one crisis, and it looks like Donald Trump. He's afraid of Mueller. He's afraid of what's going on, and so he's willing to break the Constitution to stop it.
So this is what I'm saying. Everybody's like, well, how will we know if we're in a constitutional crisis? We know. This man is shredding the Constitution. We can't get our votes counted, okay? You're going to have angry mobs banging on supervisors' doors tomorrow, at least in Florida. Okay, Arizona, they're still, counting ballots. You got about 400,000 out, and we don't know the result yet. But here in Florida, we're into recounts. Here in Florida, we had a ballot that didn't include the top of the ticket race. The Senate race was put in a separate column underneath ballot instructions off to the side. And the top of the ballot started not with the top of the ticket race, the statewide Senate race, but it started with the governor's race. You had more people voting for governor, tens of thousands, only in one county, though, because our ballots are all different. Okay, district to district, our ballots are different. And in this one district, Frederica Wilson's district, by the way, and the reason why she wasn't on the ballot is because she didn't have a Republican challenger and she had won her primary. So she didn't need to be on the ballot. And so what you had was governor, then you had, attorney general, then you had agriculture commissioner, and you had some other race, I forget. But those down ballot races got more votes than the Senate race did. Tens of thousands of more votes. That was obviously so that they could rig the election for Rick Scott, because he needs that Senate seat. Why does he need the Senate seats? because the House is going to investigate the hell out of him, okay? And the Senate, after he's impeached, the Senate will have to have a trial. The Senate is going to be responsible for removing. And as long as he holds these sycophants into the Senate, the Rick Scotts of the world, and the Lindsey Grahams of the world, as long as he has the Senate, he will never be removed. That's why he's saying, let them impeach me. I think politically it would be a good thing for me, because my rabid asshole crowd will love that I'm being attacked. They will come and they will defend me. Where are the bikers for Trump? He's actually putting out a call for violence. It's unbelievable. Meanwhile, he lost West Virginia, okay? He went there a million times. He lost Wisconsin. He went there a million times. He lost the Senate race in Montana. He went there a million times, okay? That's why they're fighting so hard for Florida and for Arizona. He needs a head count to keep him from being removed, is what this is about. Why would we remove him? Because he's obviously shredding the Constitution right in front of your face. This Whitaker dude, he says he doesn't even know him. Of course he knows him. He knows him.
I don't know Matt Whitaker.
I mean, I know Matt Whitaker.
I don't know Matt Whitaker.
I mean, I know Matt Whitaker.
I don't know Matt Whitaker.
I mean, I know Matt Whitaker.
I don't know Matt Whitaker.
I mean, I know Matt Whitaker.
This is a sick thing. Of course he knows. Do you believe anybody, does anybody in this audience believe that Donald Trump would put somebody's flunky in charge of Robert Mueller that he didn't know? Well, I never would have appointed Jeff Sessions if I knew he would recuse himself. No, he has vetted this Whitaker dude. He's lying. And Whitaker's been all over the TV. That's the thing. After Whitaker, was, run out of Dodge because he was running a fraudulent patent company, bilking people out of thousands and thousands of dollars, he went back to Iowa with his tail between his legs. Now, you got this Iowa cabal, okay? You got Senator Grassley, who's the head of the Judiciary Committee, Iowa. Branstad, who, was the governor of Iowa. Steve King in the Iowa. That's why I was begging Iowa, please don't do this. Please don't do this. Please think this through. Think this through. But this is all coming out of Iowa. Whitaker, out of Iowa. Moved to New York City after that Miami debacle in order to get on television to convince Donald Trump that he knew how to fire Mueller, that he knew how to do it, that Hillary was the focus of, Hillary needed to be indicted. She was the person that they should focus on.
We all know that the Clinton private email server was a violation of law. The only person that can enforce that act is the Attorney General. And this administration clearly has no interest, whether it was Holder or whether it's a former U.S. attorney in New York named Loretta Lynch. Either one has no desire to go after Hillary.
You get it? He's been on television so many times that they brought him in. Donald Trump hears something on Fox News or hears something on the TV that's positive, and he will call that person, and we know that. Sean Hannity was called up on stage. It's like Fox just said, screw it. Jeanine Pirro was brought up on stage like, screw it, okay? We're not even going to pretend to be fair and balanced. We're just going to, go for it now. They have a propaganda machine. It's cranking out crap. Like, I don't know him. I do know him. Oh, Felix Sater? I wouldn't know him if, you had him in a lineup. And then a business card is produced. Felix Sater, senior advisor to President Donald Trump at the Trump Organization. Oh, Paul Manafort, he only worked for me for a very short time. He's been living in that building, and they've been friends for 20 years. Same with Roger Stone, friends for 30 years. Oh, my God. It's like insanity. Well, it is.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Are you going to leave Jim Acosta in the penalty box?
I think Jim Acosta is a very unprofessional man. I think he does this with everybody. He gets paid to do that. He gets paid to burst in He's a very unprofessional guy. Whether it was me or Ronald Reagan or anybody else, he would have done the same thing. Look, I don't think he's a smart person, but he's got a loud voice. And here, wait, David, do you mind if I answer the question? And as far as I'm concerned, I haven't made that decision, but it could be others also.
Oh.
When you're in the White House, this is a very sacred place to me. This is a very special place. You have to treat the White House with respect. You have to treat the presidency with respect. If you've ever seen him dealing with Sarah Huckabee Sanders, it's a disgrace. And he does it for, the reason. The same thing with April Ryan. I watch her get up.
Oh, my God.
I mean, you talk about somebody that's a loser. She doesn't know what the hell she's doing. She gets publicity, and then she gets a pay raise, or she gets a contract with, I think, CNN. But she's very nasty, and she shouldn't be. She shouldn't be. You've got to treat the White House and the office of the presidency with respect.
Oh, my God. He's going to lecture us about respect for the presidency. He is. He's going to lecture us about tone and Sarah Huckabee Sanders tweeted out a doctored fake video that was made by InfoWars to allege, to lie and say that Jim Acosta had manhandled and attacked and accosted a young White House intern who looks so much like Hope Hicks, it's almost creepy. It's like he replaces one with another lookalike. It was just, and then as soon as he got done saying, you must have respect for the office of the presidency, and you must have respect, and the way that Sarah, the freaking propagandist, people are appalled. The White House News Photographers Association, among others, said it was appalled by Sarah Sanders' video that was doctored, that had sped up the frames to make it look like Jim Acosta was, chopping the arm of an intern who was literally grabbing the microphone out of Jim Acosta's hand. The reason why Jim Acosta had the microphone is because he was called on. That's number one. Number two, he was asking a question. The president didn't like the question, didn't feel like answering the question, and he started berating Jim Acosta. And Jim Acosta was not rude. And in fact, when this girl, I tweeted, I hold my mic too. I don't have to, but I've been doing it this way for so long. It relaxes me, actually. But honestly, if somebody came up to me and tried to grab my mic out of my hand, I don't think I would have been, pardon me, ma'am, which is what Jim Acosta said to her. Pardon me, ma'am. Oh, yeah, I know every time I, think about assaulting somebody, I want to say, pardon me, before I assault them. I think I would bop them over the head. I mean, it's like a weapon, right? I mean, if you wanted to attack somebody and somebody was grabbing I'd bop you. I'm trained to fight, for God's sake. But this is what happened. This is the real video of what happened. And she tweeted out some fake, authoritarian governments do this. Hitler used to do this. Lots of totalitarians manipulate public. Stalin used to do it. They would Photoshop out certain people or Photoshop in certain. During the McCarthy era, they did it too. Senator McCarthy of Wisconsin, no less, when he was doing the big red scare hearings, when everybody was a communist and, under every rock was a communist and all the Jews were communists, that was anti-Semitic too. That whole 1950s commie hunting thing. But they would do that too. They would Photoshop a person into a photo of a known communist. This is in the Soviet Union, the old Soviet Union. They regularly airbrushed out people in state photos and put them out. Stalin purged any international enemy out of any photo. The wartime governments censor images. You know that we did it in World War II, right? Modern day regimes, Kim Jong-un does it. And now you have the White House doing it. The White House doing it. And the president insisting that Jim Acosta be shut down and shut out. They took his press pass. Look.
Why do you mind? I mean, it's...
I was just told to do it.
Okay, well, I have every right to record this. This is Jim Acosta. I am in front of the White House. Secret Service officer is asking for my hard pass. Obviously, no hard feelings to the officer, but I am now giving my hard pass to the Secret Service. So, do you want to take it off the lanyard there? Or?
So.
Sure. Any help there?
Actually, yeah, here. If you could hold that, I don't want to lose any of that.
Sure.
It's been here for a while, huh?
Well, yeah, I've been working at the White House for 5 years, covering 2 administrations. So, yeah, it's been in that thing for a while.
Put this back here for you.
All right. Thank you for your service, officer.
Yeah, he's a real asshole, isn't he? Thank you for your service, officer. Here is what actually, this is the real freaking tape, okay?
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to challenge you on one of the statements that you made in the tail end of the campaign in the midterms. That
here we go.
If you don't mind, Mr. President, that this caravan was an invasion. As you know, Mr. President,
I consider it to be an invasion.
As you know, Mr. President, the caravan was not an invasion. It's a group of migrants moving up from Central America towards the border with the U.S.
Thank you for telling me that. I appreciate it.
Why did you characterize it as such?
Because I consider it an invasion. You and I have a difference of opinion.
But do you think that you demonized immigrants in this election
to try to keep... I want them to come into the country, but they have to come in legally. You know, they have to come in, Jim, through a process. I want it to be a process. And I want people to come in, and we need the people. Wait. You know why we need the people, don't you? Because we have hundreds of companies moving in.
Oh, my God.
But your campaign had an ad showing migrants climbing over walls and so on.
Well, that's true. But they weren't actors.
They're not going to be doing that.
They weren't actors. Well, no, it's true. Do you think they were actors? They weren't actors. They didn't come from Hollywood. Right. These were people. This was an actual, it happened a few days ago. And
they're hundreds of miles away, though. They're hundreds and hundreds of miles away. That's not an invasion.
Honestly, I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN.
All right.
And if you did it well, your ratings would be much better.
If I may ask one other question, Mr. President, if I may ask one other question, are you worried?
That's enough. That's enough.
Mr. President,
that's
I was going to ask one of the other folks.
That's enough.
Pardon me, ma'am.
Pardon me, ma'am.
That's enough.
Mr. President, I had one other question, if I may ask, on the Russia investigation. Are you concerned that you may have...
I'm not concerned about anything with the Russian investigation because it's a hoax. That's enough. Put down the mic.
Mr. President, are you worried about indictments coming down in this investigation?
Mr. President.
I'll tell you what, CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN. Go ahead.
I think that's unfair.
You're a very rude person. The way you treat Sarah Huckabee is horrible. And the way you treat other people are horrible. You shouldn't treat people that way. Go ahead. Go ahead, Peter. Go ahead.
In Jim's defense, I've traveled with him and watched him. He's a diligent reporter who busts his butt.
Well, I'm not
like
a big fan of yours either. So
I understand.
To be honest.
So let me ask you a question, if I can. You repeatedly said
you aren't the best,
Mr. President. You repeatedly over the course of the...
just sit down, please. Well, when you report fake news, when you report fake news, which CNN does a lot, you are the enemy of the people. Go ahead.
Oh, my God. All right. And then today he said others are going to have their press pass revoked, too. So he's shredding the Constitution by appointing flunkies to run the Justice Department without Senate confirmation to protect him. Literally shredding the Constitution. He's attacking and has been attacking a free press because he can't handle it. He doesn't like the hard questions. He said today others might also lose their press passes. We can't get our votes counted. Everybody's got a gun. The country is literally polarized right down the ass crack. And you don't think that we're in a constitutional crisis? You don't think that this country is being destroyed from within? Let me show you something. Right after he did this thing about Jim Acosta today again, Oh, he's rude, and the way he talks to Sarah, who's tweeting out doctored fake videos. I mean, fake videos. In order to sway public opinion through propaganda. Another reporter, a female reporter, had the temerity to ask him a question about the Mueller investigation again today, which is what set him off there, right? That and the fact that he put out a racist TV commercial that was so racist of a Mexican guy who had snuck into the country under Bill Clinton, was deported under Bill Clinton, came back into the country under George Bush, was arrested by Sheriff Arpaio in Maricopa County and released twice. And Donald Trump was running this racist ad with this guy in court who eventually shot 2 police officers at his sentencing. The guy is from Mexico and said Democrats let him in, and then conflated Mexico, which is a separate country, with Hondurans who are hundreds of miles away, who will surrender themselves to Border Patrol to make claims of asylum, which is completely legal. That's what Jim Acosta was asking him about. Today, he was leaving for Paris because, of course, that's where you want to spend Americans' Veterans Day, in Paris, right? And this reporter, her name is Abby Phillip. She's from CNN also. Oh, man, I lost my list. I think it's 11 or 5. Yeah, it's 11. Thanks. She asked him a question.
Crazy USMCA.
Do you accept Matt Whitaker to be involved in the Russia probe? Do you want him to...
That's up to him.
Do you want him to rein in Robert Mueller?
What a stupid question that is. What a stupid question. But I watch you a lot. You ask a lot of stupid questions.
This is the person who is preaching to us about rudeness, and the presidency must be treated with respect, and da-da-da. He calls Abby Phillip because she asked him, do you want Whitaker to get rid of the Mueller investigation? And he goes, what a stupid question. But I watch you a lot. You always ask stupid questions. Right after he got done lecturing us about the presidency is a place that's it's a sacred place and it must be respected. And then he starts to attack the press and anybody that asks him a question about this unconstitutional appointment here with this guy who is a flunky. He is a nobody who suddenly everybody knows his name because Trump put him in charge of the most awesome law enforcement agency we have, the entire freaking Justice Department, which means all the attorneys general report to this guy who is a fraud and was found to be a fraud by a court and ordered to pay $25 million, his company, for defrauding people. Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
You had some that decided to, let's stay away. They did very poorly. I'm not sure that I should be happy or sad, but I feel just fine about it. Mia Love gave me no love. Sorry about that, Mia. They got nothing. Zero. You know why? Because there is nothing. They can play that game, but we can play it better. If that happens, then we're going to do the same thing, and government comes to a halt. I'm very happy with most of my cabinet. They're under audit. They have been for a long time. They're extremely complex. People wouldn't understand them. People don't understand tax returns. It's a very complex instrument. People wouldn't understand it. I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN. That's enough. That's enough.
Mr. President, the other folks
That's enough.
Pardon me, ma'am.
Pardon me, ma'am. That all of a sudden has turned into propaganda to kill freedom of the press, to keep out press people. I mean, he's pretty much ended press conferences. Sarah just now tweets doctored videos from InfoWars now. This is the presidency. This is the office of the President of the United States. InfoWars, really? This is a sickness. Oh, and by the way, you know who's paying for the protesters in Miami? During the break, I was reading an article. The Mercer family. Those protesters are paid protesters by the Mercer family. Yeah, they did all these Facebook groups, just like they did with the election, right? All these Facebook groups, and they told everybody, go down to Miami and start protesting. So over the weekend, we're going to have all these, Mercer family, the Rebecca Mercers and the Cambridge Analytica folks. Yeah. They put out the call, and everybody is, going to go to be their beck and call girls and bang on windows while we try and do a recount in Florida tomorrow. This is a sick situation. No free press, okay? No free press. No constitutional anything apply. Emoluments clause. What is the emoluments clause? Foreign governments cannot buy off your president. He violates that. He violates the Constitution Appointments Clause. He violates the Advise and Consent Clause. He's picking flunkies. He's picking... Oh, my God. And he lies and lies and... What?
No, you're just talking about the paid people there. There's a video that just went viral of Representative Matt Gaetz arguing with a Gillum supporter.
Oh, Gaetz? Yeah, he's another lunatic.
Yeah,
that's another white
Matt Gaetz.
supremacist from the northern hinterlands of Florida. Not where the people live. Where the cows live. Where the oranges grow. Where the workers are all immigrants. Oh, my God. And, those people there, they're like, well, I might be poor. I might live in a double wide. But at least I ain't brown. I like that Matt Gaetz. He's stupid. I could be smarter than my own congressman. Oh, my God. Yeah, you watch. You wait. This weekend's going to be a doozy. A doozy, because the more they count, the more the Republicans are threatened here. Because these are Democratic districts. Palm Beach is Democratic except for the island. And so is Fort Lauderdale and Miami. Buy a stinking podcast.